My first thought, it was a deer, but the way I felt the movement on the ground from this thing, it would have had to have been the biggest buck in Michigan. I just turned around and ran out of the trail back towards the house, and as I approached the back of our barn and was walking towards the back door, I heard the loudest roar scream I have ever heard. I looked in the direction of the noise, and right in front of me, across the street, standing at the edge of one of our other fields near the woods, was this large, upright, black figure.
Man, I wish I had 750 donuts like this sign says.
It says $750, not donuts.
What if each donut cost $1?
I hate that you're kinda right.
Switch to Progressive and you can save hundreds.
Never leave your wife in bed without reaching the final moments again. This is capable of making your member hard and big as a steel
My dad was
bar.
inside watching TV. When I got inside, I asked him, "Did you hear that?" And he said, "What?" So I told him what I heard and saw. But when he looked out the front window, it was gone. My dad told me he thought he heard something, but the TV volume was up really high, so he didn't hear it that well. I wish now that I would have walked out to that area of the field later, or the day after, to see if I saw anything. But being a kid, I wasn't thinking like that, and my dad and I never discussed it again. I was aware of Bigfoot back then. Even remember in our old elementary geography books, the section about the Pacific Northwest had a picture of the Patterson-Gimlin film, but never thought they were around here. We also, around the same time frame, had a collie, family dog, go missing, and I now think this could be the reason why. I don't know if what I saw is what people in the area have called the Dewey Lake Monster, but there had been pushing him until Jimmy fell. Jeff then began making faces at what he thought was Jimmy's bad acting. The wind was blowing hard. It was blowing up dirt and weeds around, Jeff stated, and I'm making fun of Jimmy when something blew in my eye, then blew my Beetle Bailey hat off. I went chasing it through the grass. I almost walked into it. The thing that Jimmy was staring at. It was huge. I thought we were in big trouble, Jeff later told his uncle.
Great season, alright? You got this, Carlos!
Thanks, Advance.
Like Advance.
I'm the #1 fan of Advance Auto Parts, and I am here for the free battery test. Yes! 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 And free die-hard battery installations! Let's go!
Or when you put on new wiper blades.
To the east across the lake. They toured around the northeast edge of the lake for a while in early pre-dawn. The lake was quiet. There were no other boats present as they made their way back and began navigating around the southwest side of the lake. As their boat made the loop north around the islands, Roger Long saw something swimming in the lake. It was big. At first I thought it may be a doe, but it was very thick and hairy, rolling up and down as it swam. Roger says he cut the motor and drifted, watching the thing approach the shore of Hemlock Island. As the sun came up, both Helen and Roger waited, staring at the trolling animal, which occasionally would disappear under the water. They hoped to get a better look at it, should it exit the water onto the shore. At first we thought it was neat, to see a wild animal swimming like that, but I also could not figure it out, because it seemed to be we were attempting to cover for wrecking the car. However, one of the multi-jurisdictional officers, Gurley Jones, at the scene noticed the tire drag marks ended at a point just over the lip of the hill. Upon further inspection, Officer Jones documented several important things. First, the skid marks continued over the hill, which indicated that the car's wheels were locked and the car was moving at a consistently low rate of speed as it continued off the small knoll. Secondly, the tread marks were clear and articulated at a pivot point where the car flipped, indicating it had been lifted as opposed to suddenly going airborne. And third, if the car had flipped over as the result of losing control at a high rate of speed, it would have gone airborne at the peak of the hill, rather than after descending the slight incline. At the time, the officers ridiculed Jones. Additionally, to the isolated section of the south side of the lake, so both Vinny and Willis knew Kirk could not be too far away. It was cool. I remember we had gone to Elkhart to look at that trailer before, but thought it was too expensive. We couldn't believe he bought it, Vinny recalled. Willis and Vinny waited for approximately 10 minutes, then started getting suspicious that something might be wrong. Around this time, they began to hear the crunch of leaves outside and initially thought it was Kirk approaching. Then suddenly, the trailer began to rock violently. Vinny said, "I thought we were gonna tip over. I was thinking, we're gonna roll into the water." Vince recalled, "We just crawled out, spilled our beers." Willis stated, "We jumped out looking around." Vinny remembered, "Then Kirk comes running up, and when we saw him, right away I rented for the month." They were coming back from Grand Haven, where they had supposedly gone to see the opening of a musical fountain. After approximately a 2-hour drive, they found themselves some 15 minutes away from Twin Lakes, as traveling along the unpaved gravel road of Dewey Lake Street. As they slowed down through a narrow stretch of gravel road that navigated between the swamp on the eastern stretch of Dewey Lake Road, their headlights suddenly fell on what Randy Imes claimed looked like a giant tree growing in the middle of the road. Imes indicated that Terry Jones stopped the car, considering what to do, at which point the tree turned around and looked at them. Jones recalled the animal towered over them standing in the road. Then it just casually walked over and into the swamp on the north side of Dewey Lake. Around 9 p.m., they were about to break up and go home in preparation for school the next day, when Jamie Shaw took off across Dewey Lake Street in pursuit of what he thought were fireflies. His friend Mark Miller reportedly shouted to him, "There are no fireflies this time of year." Nevertheless, Jamie pursued the embers in the distance, into the swamp. The remaining friends continued to play for a while. Eventually, Katie Keene's mother began calling to her. It was time to go home. It was then they realized Jamie had never returned. She remembered, "I asked, 'Where's Jamie?' But no one knew where Jamie was. He never came back from his firefly hunt." At first, no one panicked, but then, after calling and searching without finding him, we told Mrs. Howe, Michigan. Betty Garcon, Emily Clark, Roger Wentworth. On Wednesday evening, October 31st, 1962, Betty Garcon was taking the evening train from Detroit, Michigan, back to her home in Chicago, Illinois. The train had already gotten a late start, and as the train approached Dowagiac at approximately 10 p.m., it slowed to a stop at the remote Dewey Lake Street crossing in Glenwood, Michigan. The train remained there approximately 15 minutes to investigate apparent debris on the tracks. While looking out the window, northwest into the darkness, Miss Garcon reportedly witnessed what appeared to be a faceless tree or giant stump stepping forward from the thick surrounding woods, approaching the tracks. The figure then simply leered at the train motionless for several minutes. Miss Garcon to Ashley. Bitch Camp was a fun year-round activity for the students of the Dowagiac school system. The students would get a break from traditional classes to partake in a more outdoor environment. The parents and students alike enjoyed the Finch Camp experience, as it was a fun way for the kids to participate together in the unique Southwest Michigan geography. Situated amongst the sister lakes, the children were able to engage in a serene environment. After some outdoor races, a group of the kids went to the makeshift archery range. After the exercise, the students were to go directly to dinner at the mess hall. However, two of the girls, Denise McCormick and Janine Fisher, went to retrieve an arrow which had gone awry. I don't know what was more frightening, seeing that giant animal stand like a man, or the fact that the thing seemed to be looking at us. Errol Cunningham told the Chicago Sun-Times that, "I think we were only curious until it took a step into the lake towards us. Then, it was walking into the lake towards us. I got scared and took Sally inside." Mr. Cunningham recalled that inside the house they began to discuss what they had seen and what they should do about it. Errol told his wife he did not want to call the sheriff over something they thought they had seen, and decided to attribute it to the local teenagers playing a prank. Sally and Errol then went to have drinks on their rear porch to relax, but it turned horribly bad when, instead of watching a sunset, they noticed bubbles trailing toward their beach below. It was at this point Errol and Sally went back inside to call the police and to report the oddity. He slid up closer to it and became curious when he noticed the log to be a shaggy red. Lutz remarked, had no idea how a cedar tree got in the water, and extended his oar to roll the log over. When coming in contact with the log, the thing stood up in the water, revealing a large animal. The animal, which was approximately 10 feet tall, let out an increasingly loud clucking sound, which became so loud it was painful, Lutz recalled. He said the animal then glared at him, then slid back under the water and swam off like a crocodile. Lutz had no idea what the animal was, only that it must be something that was far from home and just didn't belong in Dewey Lake. His friend, Harold Underhill, had problems, and Philip McPhee later told police he's leery of having Red stay with them, and he said Red always asked to borrow money. After joining them in the rental boat on the lake, Red and Philip had a few beers. Then Red decided to take the canoe out on the lake. Philip declined as he planned to turn in early to take his boy fishing at sunrise. Philip went to bed. In the morning, Philip and Roger got into a rowboat and put in. Philip did not see Red or the canoe and thought maybe he had fallen asleep on the lake. I knew they didn't have motorboats on Pitcher Lake, so I wasn't worried. It's not like a lot can happen out there, Philip told police. The fish were off the boat on early Wednesday after school. Leon and Danny were eager to use their new head-in lures. I remember Leon was laughing at me for using a steel leader on my lure, but I told him I did not want to lose it, and he said, "That's only for sharks," Danny stated. Leon stated that they were using heavy test line, way too heavy for inland lake fishing, but we always had a fantasy about landing a 25-pound bass, so it was a fun thought. I had no idea it would actually be too light. Auto Specialties for over 20 years before he retired in July of 1963. He increasingly spent more time in the woods around his house off Griffiths Road in Cassopolis, so it was no surprise when neighbors saw him walking through the woods with his green backpack in Ruts Forest, Newton Woods. But it was shocking a short time later when Elmer stopped people from walking toward the Dowagiac Creek. He told the Smith family they needed to call the sheriff. The sheriff was called and deputies showed up to investigate the reported body found. After investigating the reported discovery, police removed the bones, indicating it was multiple carcasses of deer. However, Elmer told the police and the witnesses who gathered that he walked upon a large red-haired animal named Donna Wilkinson Mary Simmons. 4 high school friends gathered at the south side beach of Dewey Lake on a warm spring night of Friday, April 10, 1964. Donna and Mary had gone to the water when they heard Lee and George call out, "Oh my God, is that a skunk?" Donna recalled being seen as he and George ran from their campfire back toward the beach. Mary relayed that she was not going to get sprayed by a skunk and said, "The beast chased her into her home Tuesday night, and she said she was saved when her dogs barked and drove the monster away." Mrs. Altrip said he was 9 feet tall and weighed 500 pounds. Other descriptions said it was covered with black hair up to its neck and had eyes that glowed like an animal that had light shined in its eyes. Various witnesses said the creature made noises like a tamed goose and a baby crying. Cass County Deputy Sheriff Ernest Krause said deputies were dispatched into the area in which the monster had been reported. They were armed with deer rifles and would stake out the area until we solved this. But deputies said the area was crowded with the flow of curious seekers, and all the officers were forced to direct traffic in front of her and 2 other girls. It seems like she said that she passed out. Our teacher didn't believe the stories, but she seemed to take notice when Patsy told hers. That was one scary summer. Pauline Steele. Back in the day, Sister Lakes, being rural, had quite a few one-room schools spread out through the farmland. Daly School was one of them. I'm not sure where that one was. I will find out for you. I did not leave because of a rumor. Faster than a speeding car. Tuesday, June 16, 1964. Emilio Lopez and Rico Garcia were on the south edge of a field at 31441 Swisher Street in Dowagiac. They had been sent there to retrieve wooden crates that had fallen off their co-worker's truck earlier in the day. There were 7 crates that had fallen off. Some of them still had fruit in them. It was hardly worth the effort, but since it had the name of the farm on it, we wanted to fetch it, Emilio said. The sun was setting, and we both wanted to get home. I heard this sound like a wild goose. I look over, I see it, Rico stated. A few hundred yards away across the field along the tree line. At first I thought it was a horse, Rico said he told Emilio to Daniel and John. It was then that the bull made a loud snort, then stood up on its hind legs to reveal it was not a bull at all, but something else. Something far bigger and far more frightening. Daniel was quoted as saying, "We froze in shock like statues." Then the hairy, snorting giant walked to the fence, stepped over it, and stood right in front of them. Telmo stated, John raised the.
All right. So, that's a Saturday today. So a little arm workout come out here and got. Kinda got out here a little late. I don't know, it was about 5 or 6 something maybe. I don't know. Not even sure what time it is now. And it was still a little daylight when we first come out. I mean, it ain't no big fucking deal. As long as we got it, right? I feel like that was pretty good, you know? Just did some arm work, triceps and some biceps, overhead tricep extensions, some closed grip dumbbell presses that works your tricep, well as your chest. We did some preacher curl, one arm, you know, preacher curl with the dumbbells one at a time, and we did some with the curls with the easy bar, kind of heavy weight, you know, more than what we usually do. Anyway, man, we'll wrap it up right there. Go ahead and take me a shower probably. I think I got to run to Walmart, get a few things. Yeah, I guess that's it, man. Y'all take it easy.